Breaking news out of Israel. There is a hostage deal. Hi, I'm Joel Rosenberg, founder and editor-in-chief of All Israel News, and I'm coming to you on one of the most dramatic nights in modern Israeli history since the October 7th invasion by Hamas of Israel. We are now on day 467 as I record this, and 467 days of hell for almost 100 Israeli hostages. Okay, right now we believe there are 97 Israeli, American, and foreign hostages held in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip. Most of them, we believe, are in those terror dungeons, those terror tunnels underneath Gaza. But some we have learned over time are being held in buildings above ground. But we don't know how many of those 97 hostages are still alive. Okay. But tonight, Israel time, here on Wednesday, January 15th, the news broke around 7 p.m. Local time here in Israel, about noon Eastern in Washington, that a deal had been struck. That there were some final things that the signatures weren't on the paperwork, and that the Israeli Security Cabinet will be voting on Thursday morning at 11 a.m. local time here in Israel, on formally accepting the deal. But the news started to break that the deal was done. Now, it's interesting that the deal was announced actually not by President Biden initially, but by President-elect Trump. He went first. That's how we know that a deal was finalized, because he put out a statement on Truth Social, his social media platform, and which he said in that statement, "We have a deal for the hostages in the Middle East. They will be released shortly. Thank you." And all that was in capital letters. Thank you had an exclamation point after that. Soon thereafter, Israeli officials began speaking anonymously that yes, a deal seemed to be done. A senior Hamas spokesman put out a statement that yes, the deal was finalized. And then soon thereafter, President Joe Biden made live comments at the White House saying, "Blessed are the peacemakers," and laying out some of the sort of the broad strokes of the deal. Now, the good news is that the first of the hostages will be released, Lord willing, according to the deal, on Sunday. The broad contours of the deal indicate that there are going to be several stages. At least it looks like 3 stages to the deal. The stage 1, 33 Israeli hostages alive, people who are still alive, will be released. These include babies, women, the wounded, and men over 50. The next phase would be done once more negotiations take place, but a ceasefire would begin at 12:15 p.m. local time in the Gaza Strip. Israel would stop fighting. It would pull back, not completely out of Gaza, but it would pull back to a buffer zone. And then have to be more negotiations for the next set of hostages, mostly Israeli military personnel, and then the last stage would still have to be more details negotiated. But the third stage of the deal would involve bodies of Israeli and foreign hostages of people that have died in captivity, that Hamas would turn over. Now, that's what Israel's getting. What is Israel giving? Okay, because this is the most controversial part. Every Israeli wants to get the hostages out. What the biggest debate internally was over 2 things: how many Palestinian terrorist prisoners is Israel going to have to release to get these hostages back? And secondly, does Israel have to surrender effectively in Gaza? Don't we need to keep fighting to fully defeat Hamas? We've gotten a long way, right? We've assassinated their top leader, Ismail Haniyeh. We assassinated their chief strategist of the October 7th invasion and massacre, genocide. That's Yahya Sinwar. And we've assassinated the top military commander of Hamas in Gaza, a guy named Mohammed Def. So Ismail Haniyeh, Yahya Sinwar, and Mohammed Def all eliminated. And about 80 to 85% of the Hamas terror force, the terror army, has been killed or captured or severely wounded in Gaza. So Israel has made huge, huge military gains over the last 6 months or so. We looked bogged down in last summer, but there's been tremendous successes and tremendous progress over the last 6 months. So that's why Israeli officials at the senior level, Prime Minister Netanyahu, who'd been against a deal that President Biden had laid out in May of last year, Netanyahu saw it as premature, basically effective surrender to Hamas because we hadn't made those big gains. Okay, in May of last year we had not invaded the southernmost city in the Gaza Strip, Rafah, and so several battalions of Hamas terrorists were still living there, fighting from there, firing rockets at us, holding hostages from there. But Israel decided, even though Biden told us not to, Netanyahu decided to invade Rafah, and there was minimal civilian casualties because of that. Some, definitely, and painful each one. But Israel accomplished an enormous amount, including finding and killing Yahya Sinwar, the chief, wicked, demonically possessed mastermind of the October 7th invasion. So huge successes. But part of this deal, according to the media reports that are emerging, and we'll have more details in the days ahead, and All Israel News will cover it step by step and from each angle. But for every live hostage that's released in the first stage, it will be 30 Palestinian prisoners, some of them hardened terrorist murderers, will be released. 30. For every female Israeli soldier that's going to be released, Israel is giving up releasing 50 Palestinian prisoners, mostly terrorists, mostly murderers. Now, where are those prisoners going to be released to? Israel said we are not releasing them inside the Palestinian Authority, which is what biblically we and evangelicals and others call Judea and Samaria, what most people in the world call the West Bank, what the Palestinians call the Palestinian Authority. Israel says, well, no, we're not releasing hardened terrorist criminals into the West Bank because they'll work on destabilizing the West Bank. So we'll wait and see the exact details. All Israel News will report it, but there are three options: that these terrorists will be released into Gaza itself or into Qatar, the Gulf Sunni Arab country where the negotiations are happening right now. And Qatar hosted the top Hamas leaders, including Ismail Haniyeh, which Israel eventually assassinated when Haniyeh traveled to visit the Iranian leadership in Tehran. So that's a possibility. And the other possibility is that these terrorists would go to Turkey or possibly all three. So we don't know that yet. At least we're recording this news bulletin. I don't know this yet. Well, there's a lot of controversy. Why would we be releasing prisoners? That's ridiculous. We shouldn't be even negotiating. But I want to say that there's deep controversy and deep pain. But the Israeli people have overwhelmingly made our decision. The polls show between 70 and 75% of Israelis say it's time to get all of our hostages back, even if we have to make steep concessions, even if we had to end the war. The theory being not that we want to end the war, not that we want to leave Hamas even partly intact, but we will have to fight Hamas for a long, long time. But we don't have time to get these hostages back. They as we record this, it's been 467 hellish days. And I've interviewed hostage families. I've interviewed people that were hostages that now have been released. And I can tell you the grief, the pain is off the charts. And so I want to say that there is total Israeli consensus. Israelis don't agree 70 to 75% of the country on almost anything, but there is full agreement among the 70, 75%. Okay, there is a 25% faction that said, no, keep fighting, don't make any concessions. But the vast majority, the super majority of Israelis say, no, now is the time. And obviously, Prime Minister Netanyahu, who was resisted and opposed deals prior, has now said yes. And he is doing so in part because of President Donald Trump. Yes, President Joe Biden and his team have worked very hard to get a deal, and they get credit for the November 2023 deal that released 105 hostages. But we haven't seen a deal since. And many people have speculated that the weakness of President Biden, physically, mentally, but also in his administration, was causing Hamas to feel emboldened. And also the rift, the deep tensions between Biden and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu meant that Netanyahu didn't trust Biden. Biden was basically trying to pressure Israel into a premature ceasefire in Gaza, which Netanyahu and most Israelis read as surrender. And Netanyahu didn't want to do it. And so what's happening now? Well, now we're seeing a rare moment of bipartisanship. The Biden team and the Trump team have been working very closely together to bring these negotiations to fruition. But the key that I'm being told by senior Israeli officials, and I see it in the culture too. People see the change, yes, was the military pressure that Netanyahu and his team put on Israel, on Hamas, and all these military successes that I just mentioned. But that had been the case for several months. What changed? We say on Passover, why is this night different from all other nights? Why has Hamas been willing to come to the table and make a deal now? And the answer, I believe, is that President-elect Trump made an ultimatum. He issued an ultimatum and he said, this is, All Israel News is an evangelical, Christian, news site. So forgive me for the language. It's Trump's language, but I'm just going to quote him. Trump said that there would be all hell to pay if Hamas does not release all the hostages by the time Donald Trump takes the oath of office on January 20th, Monday, January 20th, 2025. And that caught the Hamas's attention. That demand, that ultimatum that we didn't know exactly what it meant, right? We've talked about that on All Israel News. I talked about it on the videos. Nobody quite knows, what does Trump mean? Was he going to unleash American special forces to invade, or to surge in and work with Israel to get those hostages back or whatever, and crush Hamas? Was Trump going to open the floodgates and give Israel so many more weapons and much more freedom to work than sort of the feeling that Israel's had its hands tied or handcuffed by the Biden team that kept conditioning more weapons and ammunition on Israel surrendering or accepting a ceasefire? So all that to say, when Biden started to put that level of pressure on, that's what brought Hamas back to the table. And Trump sent his own chief negotiator now on this, a longtime business ally and friend and colleague of Donald Trump named Steve Witkoff. And Witkoff worked with the Biden team, but it's Witkoff that's getting already a lot of credit so far that he's the one that brought this deal to fruition. Now, that doesn't discount what the Biden team did, but there is a dynamic change. That's clear that the dynamic has changed and the deal finally got done. One more point, and that is Israelis are very, there is hope. There is a sense of cautious relief, but I will say there's a lot of pain because we've been through 467 days of hell as a country, attacked from all sides, including the media, including world governments, the UN, the International Criminal Court, and so forth. At the same time, our troops are exhausted, many wounded, many Israeli troops have been killed in this battle. Obviously, the Palestinians are suffering terribly. And there's emotional costs, there are psychological costs, there are physical costs, and there are spiritual costs. And when this war finally is over, whenever that is, maybe it will be in the coming weeks, coming months, the effect of this war is going to go on for a long, long time. The damage of this war is going to go on for a long, long time. The recovery is going to be very painful, very long, very slow, very costly. So there is hope, there is optimism, there's a sense of, oh gosh, please, Lord, let this be true. And it seems to be true. We'll know more Thursday, Friday. And we believe the first hostages are going to be released literally on Sunday, just a day before Trump takes office, and then the ceasefire will kick in and take effect 12:15 p.m. local time here in Israel. So we'll have a clear sense in the days ahead. Follow All Israel News on social media and, of course, at allisrael.com for all the latest coverage. But I wanted to give you this breaking news update because this is the most dramatic night. This is the most dramatic news cycle since October 7th. We've had some big ones, Iran's attack twice, and the other hostage release. But this may lead to the release of all the hostages. That's what we pray for. Please, if you're a follower of Jesus Christ, don't stop praying. I agree that with Matthew chapter 5, blessed are the peacemakers. These are the words of Jesus, and we want to see peace. But we also want to see recovery, and we want to see security. Israelis value security even more than peace because they don't believe there is peace without security. So pray for Israelis, pray for these hostages, pray for their families, pray for the Palestinians as well. And we'll keep you posted every step of the way on a very historic night here in Israel, here in the epicenter, here in Jerusalem. This is Joel Rosenberg for All Israel News.